We have an update about Arizona's largest national park. It is now closed to visitors. The National Park Service announced that the Grand Canyon will be closed until further notice.
Today is the first full day of the stay-at-home order for our state. And with that, some Arizona lawmakers are now pushing the federal government to close down the Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon has been a popular holiday destination for families seeking an adventure since the 1900s. It is still one of the most sought-after tourist sites in the U.S. But what if we told you that the U.S. government has closed off about 90% of this amazing wonder of nature?
The Grand Canyon. We told you yesterday that National Park would be shut down along with the government, and today it happened. Visitors already inside the park now told they have 48 hours to leave.
To protect a 1,000-year-old secret. This new revelation could change how we look at history forever. A drone has just captured something no one was supposed to see in the forbidden area of the Grand Canyon, and these shocking discoveries will leave you questioning everything you know about history. So what are these ancient mysteries, and how and why is the government keen on keeping them away from the masses? Stick around as we explore the mysteries of this wonder of nature. The forbidden area of the Grand Canyon. Although the Grand Canyon National Park is a no-drone zone, a drone recently flew over what is now known as the forbidden area of the Grand Canyon National Park, an area that is closed off from the general public and only accessible to park rangers, military, and government personnel. This area spans across the region around where the Colorado River and the Little Colorado River meet, all the way to the Anasazi Bridge, and is considered sacred by many Native American tribes because of its cultural significance. Among the Native American tribes who live in the area, the Hopi and Navajo make up most of the inhabitants of the area. The Anasazi Bridge is a prehistoric bridge made of pine trees, perched 300 feet above the Colorado River. It is believed to have been used by the people of the ancestral Pueblo culture, from whom the Hopis and Navajos are descended. The government claims the restriction of movement placed around certain parts of the Grand Canyon is to protect the park's natural and cultural resources, ensure tourist safety, and preserve the park for future generations. But conspiracy theorists and alternative researchers insist that it is just an elaborate cover-up. The common notion is that there is indeed a forbidden zone within Grand Canyon National Park, despite the authorities' claims, and it's forbidden for anyone to hike, camp, or explore there. It is also believed by many that beneath this so-called forbidden area of the Grand Canyon lies a secret, the last remains of an ancient and even extraterrestrial civilization that once thrived right in the heart of the canyon. In the recent episodes of the controversial podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, Joe Rogan and some of his guests like geologist Dr. Randall Carlson, historian Graham Hancock, and author Brian Hotep Jesus Sharp discussed the drone footage that allegedly exposed the existence of ancient Egyptian artifacts and a hidden subterranean city in the Grand Canyon.
Could there be a hidden city in the Grand Canyon? Believe it or not, there are tales of an ancient underground metropolis discovered in the early 1900s.
The three experts also went deep into the closure of the canyon and the possible effects on the tourism industry and the economy in general. They also discussed the discovery of ancient reptile fossils in the allegedly off-limits areas of the canyon, which allude to ancient Egyptian civilization, and they even went so far as to suggest that nefarious branches of the U.S. federal government secretly monitor the entire area. Alan Krill's stunning discovery. Norwegian geologist Alan Krill was hiking along the Grand Canyon National Park's Bright Angel Trail with a group of students when a huge boulder caught his attention. This boulder had markings on it that Krill suspected were reptile footprints. Alan Krill then took pictures of these markings and sent them to his friend at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. This friend, a paleontologist named Stephen Rowland, carefully examined these markings and concluded that they were indeed ancient fossilized footprints. But which animal did they belong to? In a recent article published in the science journal PLOS One, Professor Rowland estimated that those fossils found by Krill are about 313 million years old. This revelation is coming about 6 years after Krill discovered the boulder, but it is important to note that it is now the oldest fossil ever found in the park. But this is not why the government would want to conceal the information from the public. As Rowland wrote in the article, this find is also the earliest evidence of amniotes living in dunes, predating other evidence by at least 8 million years. The interesting part is that these footprints could belong to an animal that is not supposed to exist. This is some of the earliest known evidence of a hard-shelled egg-laying animal known as an amniote. Although other scientists have debated Rowland's interpretation, there's not enough evidence to disprove his theory either, as the part of the park where the fossils were found is now closed off from the public. This is not the only ancient secret that lies deep in the Grand Canyon. Let us look at other stories of ancient findings in the canyons. The Smithsonian Expedition of Kincaid and Jordan.
In the early 1900s, a prospector named George Kincaid claimed to have discovered a cave in the Grand Canyon that contained Egyptian artifacts.
On April 5, 1909, the Arizona Gazette ran the headline tagged, "Explorations in Grand Canyon. Mysteries of immense rich cavern being brought to light. Jordan is enthused. Remarkable find indicates ancient people migrated from Orient." This shocking article claimed that the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History funded two geologists, Professor S.A. Kincaid and Professor G.E. Jordan, on an exploration along the Colorado River that runs through the canyon, and what they found shocked everybody. Professor Kincaid and Professor Jordan, in the article, claimed that on their expedition, they discovered old fossils and rocks that showed undeniable proof of an ancient civilization, possibly of Egyptian origin, that once existed deep in the craters of the Grand Canyon. The Smithsonian was founded as a body responsible for collecting and researching natural wonders and preserving fossils that tell the story of the Earth's natural history in 1846, so it seemed plausible that they could sponsor such an expedition. The expedition took place just a few years after the canyons was opened to visitors as a tourist attraction, therefore making it one of the most visited places in America at the time. However, just before it was set to be open to the public, President Teddy Roosevelt ordered for certain areas of the beautiful canyon to be closed off to the public, claiming the closure was an effort to prevent illegal woodloggers who wanted to cut down the trees in the canyon. Despite the reason the president gave for his decree, the Phoenix Gazette in their article claimed that there was something far darker that the president was trying to keep away from the public by closing off parts of the canyon. What could this secret be that the President of the United States would get involved? According to the story, the two geologists went into the canyon to seek gold and other treasures, but instead, they found something unexpected. Once in the canyon, Kincaid and Jordan climbed up to 2,000 feet above the ground, about 42 miles from the post known as the Lover Crystal Canyon, where they found a staircase leading up to a massive cave. Expecting to find gold, they strutted into the cave but were instead welcomed by huge oval entrances and fancy ventilation systems. The scientists began to wonder what this place was, and their suspicions of it being an ancient underground city grew when they came across a large cross hall with a gigantic statue in the middle. Kincaid and Jordan noted that this statue had a religious aura to it. It held a lotus flower in each hand and had a striking resemblance to the image of Buddha. This further cemented their suspicions that this must have been a metropolis of a thriving ancient civilization, complete with its language, writing and counting system, and its religious practices and deities. Professor Kincaid and Professor Jordan excitedly hurried back to the Smithsonian to report their findings and get more people involved in the expedition.
Kincaid rushed back to the Smithsonian and assembled a team of researchers, including Professor Jordan. It would take a whole team to sift through the findings.
Kincaid and Jordan's second expedition of the Grand Canyon. Excited by what they found in their first expedition, Professor Kincaid and Professor Jordan made their way back to the caves just a few months after their first expedition, this time probing even deeper into the canyon until they found a new set of caves. Once back in the caves, Kincaid and Jordan stumbled upon a treasure trove of knives, spears, and other copper tools needed for everyday survival. None of these things surprised Kincaid and Jordan, as they had seen them before on their first expedition. However, what caught the attention of the geologists was a series of markings on the cave walls that looked unmistakably like Egyptian hieroglyphs. Who could have made these markings native to the people of ancient Egypt in the United States? What Kincaid and Jordan didn't know was that more surprises were waiting for them the deeper they went into the cave. Following a granite staircase, the two men got to a part of the cave with mysterious holes in them, but the holes in the cave walls were not empty. They contained what looked like giant mummies all wrapped up in dark linen. This was by far the biggest breakthrough the duo had made in their escapade. It felt like they had finally found their holy grail, undeniable proof of their theory. But an unfortunate incident was awaiting them. You see, Kincaid and Jordan took a camera along with them on their second expedition, and Kincaid claimed that he took a few pictures of the rapper mummies. He also claimed to have carried along some of the cooler tools and other items they found inside the cave as they left the canyon, although this is still yet to be proven. Kincaid's account stated that he sent the items and photographs to the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History headquarters in Washington, D.C., where they knew some professionals, but Kincaid and Jordan never expected the silent treatment from their sponsors. Powell's first exploration of the Grand Canyon. For decades, there seemed to be no proof that the exploration had ever taken place, and no documents have ever been found that point to the existence of either Professor Kincaid or Professor Jordan. But the story published by the Arizona Gazette still sprouted wings and spread all over Arizona and its environs. Since then, scientists, archaeologists, and geologists have become obsessed with the Grand Canyon. This obsession was not for the canyon's beautiful landscape, but for what secrets allegedly lie within its 1,000-year-old rocks and caves. Here's where it begins to get interesting. In January 2014, when it seemed like the world had completely forgotten about the rumored ancient civilization in the bowels of the Grand Canyon, some new information surfaced about the expedition of Kincaid and Jordan. A new name popped up in the story, and the existence of this new character by the name of John Wesley Powell would explain the mystery of Kincaid and Jordan's non-existence in the original Smithsonian records about the Grand Canyon expedition. This little finding would change everything we knew about the history of the expedition. John Wesley Powell was the first director of the Bureau of American Ethnology at the Smithsonian. While serving in the Army as a geologist, Powell was in charge of the United States Geology Survey, but what he achieved in the Grand Canyon was by far the most important feat he attained. In 1869, John Wesley Powell led the very first scientific expedition into the Grand Canyon to study the Colorado River.
In 1869, John Wesley Powell, a Civil War veteran and geologist, led a daring expedition down the Colorado River through the treacherous Grand Canyon.
For this expedition, John Wesley Powell gathered 10 men, 4 boats, and food supplies for about 10 months as he set out from the Green River in Wyoming on the 24th of May, 1869. Powell and his crew passed through dangerous rapids till they got to the point where the Green River met the Colorado River, which they intended to study, on August 13th, 1869. While on the expedition, Powell wrote in his journal that he saw several wonderful features like carved walls, royal arches, glens, alcove gulches, and mounds, but alongside these naturally occurring features that decorated the Grand Canyon. He also spotted many caves along a beaten path with some bits of pottery and some hieroglyphs scribbled on some of the rocks and ruins, suggesting the existence of an old civilization in the area. Apparently, this report triggered the interest of many scientists in the area, and the story has it that the Smithsonian sent Professor Kincaid and Jordan into the canyon for the very purpose of confirming Powell's account of this ancient civilization in the canyon. Powell's second exploration of the Grand Canyon. Although John Wesley Powell claimed he uncovered a lot of archaeological wonders on his expedition, he had very little evidence to back up his claims. So in less than 2 years, Powell was back in the canyon, and because he needed actual evidence to prove his supposed findings from the first expedition, he decided to hire 3 photographers to go along with him on the second voyage up the Colorado River from the Green River. The 3 photographers were Elias Olcott Beeman, James Fenimore, and John K. Hillers. This proved to be a very smart move in the long run, as this expedition would have photos, maps, and various other forms of documentation for proof of their findings in the canyon. The photographers were not the only new members added to Powell's crew whilst he planned the second expedition. Powell also employed the services of a Mormon missionary from Utah named Jacob Hamblin. This missionary had experience living with Native American tribes, spoke their language, and understood their culture. This bit of information is important to note because it sheds light on what may have happened to Powell on his first exploration that informed his preparation for the second. It is believed that on his first exploration of the hieroglyph-scribbled caves of the Grand Canyon, John Wesley Powell must have met some Native American groups who were probably what remained of the lost tribe of the Grand Canyon, and that this tribe attacked Powell's company and killed 3 of his crew members at the mouth of the Virgin River on August 30th, 1869. Some historians have speculated they were killed by the Shivwits band of Paiute Indians. This gives more credibility to the theory that a secret tribe lived in the caves of the Grand Canyon. The reports also stated that after Powell's expeditions, dozens of explorers poured into the canyon and found an astonishing 400 Native American campsites near the Grand Canyon National Park, some of them even dating back to 12,000 years ago. The Hopi Tribe of the Grand Canyon. Allegedly, when Kincaid and Jordan got to the heart of the canyon during their exploration, they found out that the dozens of Native American tribes who settled near the Grand Canyon had legends and myths about the mysteries that happened inside the canyon itself. The Hopi tribe had a story that had been passed down from generation to generation amongst the tribesmen about their ancestors who built and sustained an underground civilization inside the Grand Canyon thousands of years ago. According to the stories, the caves in the canyon were home to a tribe of people who would capture any foreigner who was unfortunate enough to wander into one of them. The Hopi tribe is the westernmost division of the Pueblo Indian tribe. They have lived in Arizona for centuries, and although the precise origin of the Hopi people is unknown, it is believed that they and other Pueblo peoples descended from the ancestral Pueblo, tribe known as the Anasazi, whom the Hopi call Hisatsinom, a Pueblo word meaning ancient people. Hopi origin traditions tell that their ancestors climbed upward through underground chambers called kivas and lived in many different locations before reaching their present settlements. This origin story further gave credibility to Powell's theory of an underground people having existed in the Grand Canyon in the past. Much like Powell before them, Professor Kincaid and Professor Jordan went back home to prepare reinforcements for a second exploration. Did the story really happen? Although the Smithsonian was not responding to Kincaid and Jordan at the time, word was already spreading about their adventure. By the time the Phoenix Gazette published their big exposé about Kincaid and Jordan's expedition, other archaeologists and geologists began making their way to the Grand Canyon, enticed by the findings reported by the Gazette. When the new group of expeditionists got to the caves allegedly discovered by Kincaid and Jordan, they found out that the 2 professors had missed a group of tunnels that ran further into the cave. The further they went, the larger the tunnel got, until it got to the size of huge rooms about 30 or 40 feet wide. They kept going deeper into the caves until they stumbled upon a massive room, bigger than the whole width of the tunnel. This room contained several passageways branching out from it. They also reportedly saw a storeroom about 700 feet long, which had a very unpleasant smell, as if something had died in there. This storeroom was also filled with dry seeds, according to their account. The discovery of the new tunnels and large rooms encouraged the archaeologists among them to dig up the area. But they did not only find copper tools, plates, and pans made of gold, they also came across some strange writings in the cave walls. And they all agreed that these writings were not native to North America. Some of them even agreed that whoever made these markings may have come from the Orient. While the origin of the markings was still being debated, every trace of Kincaid and Jordan and their expedition was suddenly nowhere to be found in the Smithsonian archives. To date, the authorities and staff at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History maintain that there have never been any discoveries of Egyptian artifacts in North America, and the accounts of the vividly detailed Kincaid and Jordan expeditions never happened. So it begs the question, Why then would the Phoenix Gazette publish such an outrageous story if it never happened? It is believed that Kincaid and Jordan may have found something in those caves that would rattle everything the highest authorities want the masses to believe about the settlement of North America. It is believed that the two professors may have come in contact with non-Native American people in those caves during their expeditions. The popular story of the settlement of North America is that all Native Americans came to the continent during the Ice Age, trekking over the ice-capped Bering Strait. But the theory of Kincaid and Jordan meeting ancient aliens in the canyon challenges that story, and this explains why the authorities would close off the parts of the Grand Canyon where Kincaid's cave was found to the public, and even to park staff. Whether this story actually happened, or is just the work of fiction from a very imaginative team of newspaper writers, is still a debate. However, this would not be the first time ancient Egyptians have been found in some unusual places outside of Egypt. Other places where hieroglyphs have been found. Other places ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs have been found around the world include Australia. Just a few miles outside the city of Gosford in New South Wales is the Brisbane Water National Park, where a strange sighting was discovered in the 1980s. In a natural crypt, formed by vertical sandstone walls about 2.5 meters high each, more than 300 hieroglyphic symbols depicting ancient Egyptian gods, chickens, bees, and many other more unusual representations are carved into a monolith. But how did they get there? The most common theory of how the markings got there is that the markings are the handiwork of ancient Egyptian sailors who sailed to the continent of Australia some 5,000 years ago, and after being shipwrecked, engraved their story into stones and went back home leaving the rocks behind. There has not been any substantial historical backing for this theory, although it is widely believed in Australia. Another unusual sighting of hieroglyphic markings outside of ancient Egypt is even closer to the Grand Canyon, in nearby Utah. The hieroglyphs in Utah were first discovered by two prospectors from Fillmore, Clifford Purcell, and Rube Melville in 1939. In his book called Faded Footprints, Clifford Purcell said that during an attempt to find iron ore in the ground, he discovered a rock covered in lichen and green stuff. This rock had strange drawings and symbols on it that looked very much like Egyptian hieroglyphs. The book also has pictures of the symbols. Also, there have been panels with similar symbols that have been found throughout the Great Basin and as far west as the coast of California. Although no scientific evidence has been found to back up the glyphs, some people think that the symbols are a secret map to gold tablets from Utah's colonial days, although archaeologists have not been able to locate these gold tablets. A more plausible theory, some say, is that the symbols are inscriptions by Spanish miners who were looking for gold during the gold rush of the 1800s. These theories, although not backed by solid scientific evidence yet, should not be readily discarded, because as we know, the ancient Egyptians were very advanced in technology far beyond their time, and it would not be so outrageous to think that they had the navigation skills and the vessels to sail to different parts of the world and drop their influences on the places they landed. Moreover, the great ancient Egyptian pharaoh, Necho II, was said to have commissioned a group of Phoenician navigators to circumnavigate Africa and report back to him as recorded by the Greek writer and philosopher Herodotus, who lived about 150 years after the reign of Necho, and claimed to have heard this story in Egypt through oral tradition during one of his visits. He allied with Assyria and sent armies and fleets into the Syria-Palestine region to fight the Babylonian Empire, but was eventually defeated. This is not such an implausible story when you consider the fact that Pharaoh Necho II was no stranger associated with attempting grandiose feats like the one mentioned. He once attempted to construct a predecessor of the Suez Canal, an artificial waterway to connect the Nile to the Red Sea to allow ships to pass between them. This theory has been supported by several ancient writers who have mentioned proposals for such a canal in their works, and Necho is often named as the pharaoh who built it. Most contemporary sources also say that the canal was not finished by the Egyptians, but by the Persians in the year 270 BCE, during the reign of the Ptolemy dynasty. It was possibly this ambitious engineering feat, and also the fact that Necho strengthened Egypt's navy to levels never before attained, that may have suggested he may also have been interested in exploring foreign lands. The secrecy surrounding the existence of this lost tribe and the possible contact between ancient Egyptians and Native Americans has had people questioning what exactly it is that the government is trying to hide from the masses and how that information will affect what we know about American history before the coming of Columbus and the Grand Canyon. If there is indeed a lost tribe that could reveal ancient Egyptian contact with North America, why do you think the government would want to cover it up? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channels. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.